his victory is vacated, and then he's appointed to a one-year term.
Enough to make your head spin. What's going on in Kenosha?
It's a fascinating story. To tell us more about it, pleased to be joined by Eric Meadows, who's a Kenosha school board member for now. I don't know, maybe they'll rescind it again. Eric Cardle is with him as well. He's special counsel for the Thomas More Society. Eric, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, Eric, so explain how you were elected, vacated, appointed, and what comes next.
Yeah, like you said, my head's spinning about the whole ordeal. So I was elected to a 3-year term almost a year ago now, last spring. The election was noticed to be a 3-year election, and that's what people voted on. They voted on a 3-year election. What was discovered by the Wisconsin Election Commission about a year later, so just about a few weeks ago, was that a former board member who stepped down caused some confusion, and they've determined that I am technically, according to them, finishing up his term, which ends in April of this year. So I was told that I have to vacate my seat because the term is up, and because it was too late for me to get on the ballot for the spring again, they decided they were going to hold an appointment process, and they appointed me to a 1-year term. That happened just last week.
But I understand that you're not satisfied with that because
absolutely not.
You were elected to a 3-year term by the people.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think there were a lot of options that the Elections Commission and the Kenosha Unified School District could have done to fix the situation. My priority is to consider the voter intent. The voters were voting for a 3-year term, and that's what they should get. If they have to change up the rotation somehow, do that after I'm done with my 3-year term.
So how did
what I'm fighting for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did the special counsel for the Thomas More Society get involved?
Well, I've got a lot of good contacts here in Kenosha, and one of them put me in contact with Eric Cardle from the Thomas More Society, and we had a phone call and we talked about it, and they decided this is an ideal case for them to represent voter integrity.
Well, because Eric Cardle, jump in here too, because what the school board initially did by vacating his election, it doesn't have basis in law, is the argument, right?
That's right. In Wisconsin, there's actually a statute called the quo warranto statute. I'm very familiar with these actions. And quo warranto means by what authority is the government doing this? And since Eric Meadows was elected to a 3-year term, then the school board doesn't have the authority to vacate his office and appoint someone else. So it's a very important election integrity case, and that's why it's garnered a lot of attention. And Thomas More Society is a national law firm that does election integrity as well as its other areas. It's headquartered in Chicago, a venerable Chicago institution, and just doing great, fantastic election integrity litigation, principally in the swing states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we're very familiar with Tom Brocka and Peter Breen and the Thomas More Society as well, so it's good to know they're doing work in Wisconsin in addition. But I'm still a little confused. You won an election, and then you had to get appointed to your seat. So what's the justification to go through an appointment process by which there was another candidate that they considered for the appointment, but you won an election? I mean, even if you want to take the position that you won an election for 1 year, so it should be a 1-year term, even if you want to take that position, there's no thinking that says, we're going to appoint him to a seat that he won after we removed him from that seat. I don't even understand what the rationale for the appointment process is.
It's a little bizarre. Yeah, there's a KUSD or Kenosha Unified School Board policy that talks about what happens if a seat is suddenly vacant, if somebody retires or they're vacated for some reason. They are supposed to open it up to the community for people to apply for the position, essentially, where the board will then vote on who that person would be. So in their mind, I think they realized there was a problem with the election, and they were doing what they thought was best by reappointing me to my seat that I never voluntarily vacated. And that's part of the confusion, I think, is they think I'm vacating my seat, but I've never voluntarily done any of that.
Are they doing this to any other board members?
Wait, say that again. Are they doing that to any other board members?
Yeah. Are they anybody else that was elected along with you?
There were two other people that were elected at the same time,
Right.
and they're not having to vacate their seat. They selected me because I came in third place of the three seats.
Oh.
So the other two that were elected get to keep their 3-year term.
And right, so all three of you were running under the banner of 3-year term, but as I
Correct.
understand it, there was this. It should have been a 1-year term for the third place finisher. That's what they're arguing. Well, that's what it was supposed to be, right? And it was a clerical error.
That's what they're arguing. Yeah, I don't accept that, but that's what they're arguing.
Okay.
And the law
Go
isn't
ahead.
clear about that either. The law is it basically says, as near as practicable, the terms will be staggered. So they could have just waited till after his 3-year term and then elect someone for a 1-year term. So that's what gets into, by what authority does a school district, displace a school board member who's elected? Further, Eric Meadows is just a prototype of just a great school board member, and he's a critic of school board policies. And so it seems like this was obviously politically motivated. When we threatened the lawsuit, filed the cease and desist letter, that's when they appointed Eric for the 1-year term. So they switched their position after we got all the attention on Fox and Friends and so forth.
Right, yeah. And as I understand, the sort of partisan makeup of the board is like supermajority left, right?
Yeah, essentially, there's
Eric
two strong
Eric Meadows
conservatives.
gets on the board. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, there's two strong conservatives on the board. There's kind of one swing vote, and the rest are very left-leaning.
So it's a majority is left, but I mean the whole thing is like we have this policy if a board member vacates a seat, or the seat is vacated, but they vacated a seat because of a clerical error, despite the fact that the people supported him. So I mean that clearly could not have been the intent of that board policy, is that the board can vacate somebody that's duly elected if somebody else makes an error on the ballot.
That's exactly right. The policy states what happens if a seat is vacated, but it doesn't grant them authority to vacate a seat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's an important distinction. And I also just in terms of the politicization of this, in case people say, oh, you're just assuming and this and that. Well, there's some evidence to support that this is hyper political because of, here we go, board policy again. There was a bit of a brouhaha at the school board meeting among supporters of yours who had signs like saying whatever, appoint or Eric Meadows won or whatever they said, basically just supporting you with signage. And that was a violation of board policy because that was political, but it's okay for the school to fly the BLM or LGBTQ flags because that's not political.
Yeah, there's some unequal enforcement of this policy. Yeah, the board scheduled a meeting to appoint my replacement. A lot of people from the community are upset and showed up with, like you said, signs with my name on them. The board president decided that she wasn't willing to start the meeting because these signs were deemed political by her, and they ended up canceling the meeting and scheduling it for several days later, virtual only.
Well, why don't they like you?
Well, I was elected to be a change agent to the district. There's a huge segment in the country in general, in Kenosha in particular, of parents that are fed up. They're tired of being ignored by our schools. They want change. So I was elected in this wave of parents' rights groups all over the country to change how we view schools, to change how schools function, to allow parents to have the rights to direct the education of their children.
What's going on within the Kenosha School District? I mean, are there specific examples in the area of curriculum that are being debated, or in the area of sort of administrative policy with respect to that's identity politics and orientation?
Yeah, as soon as I got elected a year ago, I started hearing from parents and families about concerns of one-sided political indoctrination that's happening in schools. There's a lot of parents that are upset about that, and many of them have decided to unenroll their students in the district because they don't trust the district's going to value their way of seeing the world. So I started working with the other board members to say we need to clarify this policy that we have that prohibits political signage in schools. There's considerable debate that's happened about what political signage actually means. It means different things to different people, to me, which proves that there needs to be some clarification there.
Right. Your name is a political sign. BLM is not a political flag. No, I got it. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Makes sense, right?
All right. So where does the case stand for you to serve the 3-year term you were elected by the people to serve?
Well, we're starting the litigation process against the district to force them to allow me to finish my 3-year term. So that's a work in progress right now.
All right. Eric Meadows is a Kenosha school board member for a year, for 3 years. We don't know.
But we'll be in touch.
But we'll be watching this.
Yes.
Eric Meadows, Kenosha school board member, Eric Cardle, special counsel for the Thomas More Society, representing Eric Meadows in this imbroglio that we've been describing. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. And they both joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.